and you just committed assault and battery in front of approximately 37 witnesses.
How refreshing. Hey, what is wrong with you?
The water hit his face like judgment, cold and deliberate, thrown from a red Solo cup by a woman in a visor who looked like she'd never been told no in her entire privileged life. Marcus Chen didn't flinch. He'd survived worse. Then this building collapses, chemical fires, the kind of heat that turns skin to leather. But the shocked gasps from the poolside told him something else. In Desert Ridge Estates, throwing water on a disabled firefighter was somehow less offensive than the color of his skin using the community pool. "You don't belong here," Patricia Whitmore announced, loud enough for every resident within 50 yards to hear. Her voice carried that specific tone of entitlement, the kind cultivated through decades of HOA board meetings and country club lunches. "This pool is for homeowners only, and I've never seen you at any of our association meetings." The aluminum frame of Marcus's wheelchair burned hot under the brutal Phoenix sun. His hands scarred from the Estrella Vista fire, the one that had crushed 3 floors onto his spine, gripped the armrests, not from anger, from the physical effort of staying still when every instinct screamed to stand up, to tower over her the way he used to before metal replaced bone in his back. "I live at 2847 Saguaro Drive," he said quietly, voice steady as a held breath. The Medal of Valor pinned to his swim trunks caught the sunlight, but Patricia either didn't notice or didn't care. "I've owned that house for 3 years. And I've been to every HOA meeting you've held. I'm usually the Asian guy in the back corner you pretend not to see." The pool area went silent. 23 adults, 14 children, all frozen in that specific kind of Arizona summer stillness where even the cicadas hold their breath. That's when his sisters arrived. Sophia was already moving, sandals slapping concrete with the sharp rhythm of someone who just decided to go to war. Isabella was right behind her, phone out, recording everything. Twin attorneys. Twin furies. And Patricia Whitmore had just made the worst mistake of her 7-year reign as Desert Ridge's suburban monarch. "Ma'am," Sophia's voice cut through the heat like a knife through silk. "Did you just assault my brother?" Patricia turned, annoyed at the interruption. "I'm asking this person to leave. He's trespassing. This person," Isabella said, phone still recording, "is Marcus Chen. He lives here. He owns his home. And you just threw water in the face of a decorated firefighter who lost the use of his legs, saving a family from a burning building." The pool deck had gone completely silent now. Not a splash, not a whisper. Patricia's expression flickered just for a moment from confidence to uncertainty. Then she recovered, lifting her clipboard like a shield. "I don't know who you are, but this is a private HOA matter. I'm Sophia Chen. This is my sister Isabella. We're both attorneys. And you just committed assault and battery in front of approximately 37 witnesses." Sophia gestured at Isabella's phone. "On video, with audio. Would you like to apologize now, or would you prefer we handle this through the Maricopa County courts?" 3 months earlier, Marcus had been quieter. The kind of quiet that settles into a man's bones when the world tells him his best days are behind him. He'd bought the house in Desert Ridge Estates in 2022. Shortly after the accident, the word never felt right. You don't call 3 floors of burning building collapsing on top of you an accident when his ex-wife, Rebecca, had given him divorce papers along with the Phoenix Fire Department's medical retirement package. His daughters, Lily and Emma, 7 and 9, had drawn him pictures of Superman in a wheelchair. Those drawings were taped to his fridge, the only decoration in a house that felt more like a waiting room than a home. For 3 years, he'd kept his head down, paid his HOA dues on time, maintained his yard exactly to specification, attended meetings where Patricia Whitmore held court, watching her fine the Ramirez family $500 for parking their work truck overnight, while her own son's commercial vehicle sat in her driveway for weeks, watching her threaten foreclosure on the elderly Black Johnsons over grass 1 inch too long while her next-door neighbor's lawn grew wild. Marcus had told himself it wasn't his fight. He was still healing. Still learning to live in a body that didn't work the way it used to. Still trying to be a father to daughters who visited every other weekend and looked at him with a mixture of love and pity that broke him every time. But that was before Patricia had banned his daughters from the pool during their spring break visit. Before she'd filed a $250 violation notice for unauthorized use, even though the rules clearly permitted children during school holidays. Before she'd looked at Lily's gap-toothed disappointment and Emma's protective fury and decided those Asian kids didn't belong in her perfect white suburb. That was before this moment. Before water dripping down his face while 23 adults watched and did nothing. Before his sisters, who'd come to Phoenix for a conference and planned to surprise him, walked into the middle of his humiliation and decided to burn Patricia's kingdom to the ground. "You're making a mistake," Patricia said now, her voice rising with false authority. "I was enforcing community standards." "Community standards," Marcus interrupted. His voice still quiet, but carrying the weight of 12 years in burning buildings that you've been using to harass every non-white resident in this neighborhood for 7 years. Someone at the pool gasped. A woman near the shallow end started recording on her own phone. Patricia's face went white, then red, then white again. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I don't. 87% of violations over the past 3 years filed against minorities, Isabella said, still recording, despite minorities making up only 31% of the community. We've been reviewing public HOA records for the past 3 hours. Funny thing about data, it tells stories people think they've hidden. The water on Marcus's face had started to dry in the Phoenix heat, leaving salt white lines down his cheeks like tears he hadn't actually cried. His shirt clung wet to his chest. The metal of his wheelchair frame had gone from burning hot to scalding, but he didn't adjust, didn't move. Let them see. Let everyone see what Patricia Whitmore had done. "I think you should leave," Patricia said, her voice cracking now, defensive. "All of you, or I'll call the police." "Please do," Sophia said, pulling out her own phone. "I'd love to explain to Phoenix PD why you assaulted a disabled veteran at a community pool." Patricia grabbed her clipboard and walked away, her expensive sandals slapping against concrete, her visor slightly crooked. She didn't look back, but as she disappeared through the clubhouse doors, Marcus saw something in her rigid shoulders, her too straight spine. Not defeat, calculation. A woman was already planning her counterattack. That evening, Marcus's daughters helped him into bed, a routine that still stung with shame, even 3 years post-injury. Lily carefully positioned the pillows under his legs, the way the physical therapist had taught them. Emma brought his medication and water without being asked. "Dad," Lily said softly, gap-toothed and serious, "why did that lady hate you?" Marcus's chest tightened. How do you explain racism to a 10-year-old? How do you tell your daughters that some people will see their skin before they see their worth? "She doesn't know me well enough to hate me," he said finally. "She just hates what I represent." "What do you represent?" Emma asked. 12 years old and too smart for her own good. Someone who doesn't follow her rules. After they left his room, Marcus lay in the darkness, listening to Sophia and Isabella arguing in the kitchen the way they always did, rapid-fire Mandarin mixed with legal jargon, their voices rising and falling like music. His phone buzzed. An email from the HOA board. "Violation notice disruptive behavior at community pool fine, $500. Marcus stared at the screen until the words blurred. $500. For being assaulted. For existing while Asian and disabled in Patricia Whitmore's kingdom. He should delete it. Forward it to Sophia and Isabella. Let them handle it. Instead, he pulled up his photo gallery, scrolled back to 2019, found the picture. Engine Company 12, all of them in dress blues, grinning at the camera, young and stupid and brave. Marcus in the center, standing tall, no wheelchair, no scars, no idea that in 3 months he'd be pulling a mother and 2 kids out of a burning building and falling through 3 floors of collapsing structure. The mother had been white, The kids had been white. He'd never asked their race before running into that building. Never thought about it after. Just did the job. And now Patricia Whitmore thought he didn't belong at a community pool his tax dollars maintained. Marcus deleted the old photo, not because he regretted saving those lives, but because looking at who he used to be hurt worse than the metal in his spine. The next morning, Marcus woke to his phone exploding with notifications. 17 text messages, 9 emails, 3 voicemails. He scrolled through them with growing dread. Maria Ramirez, Mr. Chen, I saw what happened at the pool. Thank you for standing up. My family wants to help. The Johnsons, we've been trying to fight her for 2 years. Can we come by? Mrs. My son asked me why the HOA lady hates us. I finally have an answer to give him. Sophia knocked on his door, already dressed, laptop under her arm. You need to see this. The video had gone viral overnight. Not Sophia's recording someone else at the pool had uploaded their footage to Reddit, then Twitter, then local news stations. HOA president assaults disabled veteran was trending in Phoenix. The comments section was a war zone. Some supported Marcus, others defended Patricia, but the thing that made Marcus's stomach turn was the attention, the exposure, the way his humiliation had become entertainment for thousands of strangers. I don't want this, he said quietly. Sophia sat on the edge of his bed. I know, but it's already happening. The question is whether you want to control the narrative or let Patricia control it. She filed a $500 fine against me last night. Sophia's expression darkened. For what? Disruptive behavior. Jesus Christ. Sophia opened her laptop. Marcus, we can fight this. Civil rights lawsuit, assault charges, HOA audit. What if I just want to move? Marcus interrupted. Sell the house. Find somewhere else. Somewhere quiet. Sophia closed the laptop slowly. Is that what you want? Marcus looked at the ceiling, at the water stain shaped like a bird in flight that he'd been meaning to fix for 2 years. I want to not feel like this, like I'm constantly defending my right to exist. Like my daughters have to watch their dad get humiliated at a pool. Like being Asian and disabled makes me a target everywhere I go. Moving doesn't change that, Sophia said gently. It just changes the address where it happens. Then what do I do? You decide whether Patricia Whitmore gets to win without a fight. Before Marcus could answer, there was a knock at the front door. Then another. Then 3 more in quick succession. By noon, his living room was filled with 17 families, all with stories, all with documentation, all ready to finally stand up to Patricia Whitmore. But none of them knew what Patricia was planning. The lawsuit arrived 3 days later. Not against Patricia, against Marcus. Defamation, harassment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and filing false complaints with law enforcement. Isabella read from the legal documents, her voice tight with controlled fury. She's suing you for $2 million. Marcus sat in his wheelchair, staring at the papers spread across his kitchen table like evidence of his own destruction. His hands had started shaking, a new development since the pool incident, tremors that came when stress overwhelmed his already damaged nervous system. The doctor said it was anxiety manifesting through damaged nerve pathways. Marcus called it his body betraying him one more time. This is a slap suit, Sophia said, pacing the living room with the kind of restless energy that reminded Marcus of their father. Strategic lawsuit against public participation. She's trying to bankrupt you into silence. Will it work? Marcus asked quietly, watching his trembling hands. He couldn't make them stop. Couldn't control his own body any more than he could control what was happening to his life. Sophia and Isabella exchanged glances, the kind of wordless twin communication that always made Marcus feel like an outsider in his own family. If we fight it properly? No, Isabella said carefully. But it'll cost money. Legal fees alone could run $50,000 even if we win. Time 6 months minimum, probably longer. Energy. She stopped, looking at Marcus's shaking hands. More than you might have. And the longer this drags out, Sophia added gently, the more your daughters see their dad being attacked in court, the more you spend on lawyers instead of their college funds. The more I become the cautionary tale instead of the hero, Marcus finished. His voice cracked on the last word. He stopped, breathing hard, trying to push down the panic rising in his chest like water flooding a burning building. This was what Patricia wanted. Not to win in court, she probably knew her case was garbage, but to make fighting back hurt so much that Marcus gave up. To prove that standing up cost more than staying silent. "I can't do this," Marcus whispered. The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire he couldn't contain. Sophia knelt beside his wheelchair, placing her hands over his trembling ones. "Yes, you can." "You don't understand," Marcus said, and now the tremor in his hands had spread to his voice, to his whole body. "I'm barely holding it together. I have nightmares every night about the fire, not about dying, but about being trapped, unable to move, watching flames come closer. Some mornings my back hurts so badly I can't get out of bed without help, and I lie there for an hour, working up the courage to press the call button for the home health aide, because asking for help feels like admitting I'm broken." He was crying now, not caring that his sisters were watching, past the point of pride. "My daughter's Lily still draws pictures of me standing. Not in the wheelchair, standing, because she can't accept that her dad doesn't work right anymore. Emma Googles spinal cord injury cure when she thinks I'm not looking. They love me, but they also pity me, and I don't know which hurts worse." His voice dropped to barely a whisper. "And my ex-wife remarried a guy who can walk, who can play catch with his kids, who doesn't need help getting dressed. Every time I see Rebecca now, I see relief in her eyes that she got out before she was stuck being my caretaker forever." Isabella was crying too, but silently, the way she'd cried at their father's funeral. "And now Patricia Whitmore wants to take the only thing I have left, my home, my community, some shred of dignity, because I dared to use a fucking pool I pay for." Marcus laughed, bitter and broken. "So, yeah, maybe I can't do this. Maybe I should just sell the house, move somewhere cheaper, let Patricia win her perfect white suburb, and admit that I'm too broken to fight anymore." It was the first time he'd said it out loud. The first time he'd admitted that maybe the building hadn't just crushed his spine, maybe it had crushed something else, too. Something harder to fix than bones and metal, something that made you believe you were still worth fighting for. The kitchen fell silent, except for the hum of the air conditioner and the distant sound of children playing in a neighbor's yard. "Marcus," Sophia said finally, voice thick with tears but steady. "Do you remember what you told me after Dad died? When I wanted to quit law school because I couldn't focus, couldn't study, couldn't imagine a future without him?" Marcus shook his head. "You said, the worst thing that can happen already happened. Everything else is just living with it. And living is a choice we make every day." Sophia squeezed his hands. "You taught me that surviving isn't the same as surrendering, that breaking isn't the same as broken." "I don't feel like that person anymore," Marcus whispered. "Good," Isabella said, surprising him, "because that person was full of shit. Inspirational poster bullshit that sounds good but doesn't help when you're drowning." She pulled up a chair, sat facing him. "You want the truth? You might not win this fight. Patricia has money, connections, a good lawyer. The system is rigged toward people like her. And even if you do win, it's going to cost you things you can't afford to lose." Marcus looked at her confused. "But," Isabella continued, "if you don't fight, you lose anyway. You lose the house. You lose the community. You lose the example you're setting for Lily and Emma. And worst of all, you lose the knowledge that you tried." "That's supposed to make me feel better?" Marcus asked. "No," Isabella said. "It's supposed to make you feel honest. Fighting doesn't guarantee winning. It just guarantees you're not surrendering." Sophia stood, wiping her eyes. "We're not asking you to be a hero, Marcus. We're asking you to be you. Scared, broken, angry at the world, but standing up anyway. Marcus looked at his sisters, twin attorneys who'd built careers on fighting impossible cases, who saw him not as broken, but as breaking, which somehow made all the difference. "Okay," he said quietly, "but I need to do this my way. Not as inspiration porn for able-bodied people. Not as the brave disabled veteran, just as a guy who's tired of being told where he can and can't swim." "Deal," Sophia said. What none of them knew was that Patricia's lawyer had already made the next move. The letter arrived at every house in Desert Ridge Estates 2 days later, not from the HOA, from Thomas Caldwell, Esquire, Patricia Whitmore's attorney. Notice of potential liability: residents who participated in defamatory statements or provided false testimony against Mrs. Patricia Whitmore may be named as co-defendants in ongoing litigation. Legal representation is advised. Marcus read his copy 3 times before the full horror sank in. Patricia wasn't just suing him, she was threatening to sue anyone who testified against her. His phone started ringing immediately. "Maria Ramirez. Mr. Chen, I can't. I have kids. If she sues me too, we'll lose everything." The Johnsons. "Our lawyer says we could be liable if we testify. We're so sorry, but we can't risk our retirement savings." Mrs. "My son is 7. I can't put my family through a lawsuit. Please understand." One by one, every family who'd stood with him was backing away. Not because they didn't believe him, because Patricia had made believing him too expensive. By that evening, Marcus sat alone in his living room with a stack of messages from people apologizing for abandoning him. Sophia and Isabella had gone to meet with Caldwell, trying to stop the intimidation campaign. Detective Bramble was investigating whether the threat letters constituted witness tampering, but the damage was done. Marcus wheeled himself to his back patio and stared at the desert sunset, orange and purple and gold, beautiful and indifferent to his crisis. His phone buzzed with another message. "Unknown number. Mr. Chen. This is Donald Chen from the HOA board. I'm so sorry, but I have to recuse myself from the case. My grandson's college fund. I can't risk it. Please forgive me." Marcus deleted the message and pulled up his photo gallery. Scrawled to the pictures of Lily and Emma, their drawings of Superman in a wheelchair. Their crayon words: "My dad is a hero." He thought about calling Rebecca, telling her to keep the girls in Flagstaff permanently, protecting them from watching their father lose publicly and spectacularly. Instead, he opened his email and found the message from Patricia's lawyer, the settlement offer. "Mr. Chen, my client is prepared to drop all legal action against you and your witnesses if you agree to the following terms. 1. Publicly retract all accusations against Mrs. Whitmore. 2. Issue a formal apology. 3. Sell your home within 90 days. 4. Sign an NDA preventing future discussion of HOA matters. Pay $25,000 in legal fees. These terms are non-negotiable and expire in 48 hours. Marcus stared at the screen until the words blurred. 48 hours to decide whether to fight or surrender. He could accept, apologize, lie, sell his house, move somewhere cheaper, start over where no one knew him, where his daughters wouldn't have to see him lose. The community members would be safe from lawsuits. Maria's kids would keep their home. Mrs. Lee's grandson would go to college. All it cost was his dignity and the truth. His finger hovered over the reply button for 20 minutes. The sun finished setting. The sky turned from purple to black. The desert cooled from scorching to merely hot. Marcus's phone rang. Unknown number again. "Mr. Chen?" A woman's voice, older, shaking. "My name is Melissa Whitmore Chase. I'm Patricia's daughter. Please don't hang up." Marcus almost hung up anyway. "What do you want?" "To tell you that my mother is destroying herself, and I can't stop her, but maybe you can." The meeting happened at a coffee shop far from Desert Ridge, in a corner booth where no one would recognize them. Melissa sat across from Marcus, hands wrapped around a cold coffee cup, looking like she hadn't slept in weeks. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Nothing like the polished image of Patricia Whitmore's successful daughter. "I don't expect you to forgive her," Melissa began without preamble. "I don't expect you to drop the case. I don't even expect you to believe me. I just need you to understand something about my mother." Marcus waited, wheelchair positioned, so he could see both the door and Melissa's hands. Old firefighter instincts never died. Always know your exits. Always watch for danger. 20 years ago, my mother wasn't like this, Melissa continued, voice shaking. She was different, softer. She volunteered at my school. She baked cookies for bake sales. She laughed. Melissa's voice cracked. Then my father had an affair with a younger woman, an Asian woman, actually, and left us. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. My mother's entire identity was built on being the perfect wife, the perfect homemaker, the perfect suburban queen, Melissa said. When my father destroyed that, something broke inside her. She didn't cry at the divorce proceedings. She didn't scream. She just became very, very still. And then she became very, very controlling. That doesn't excuse racism, Marcus said flatly. No, Melissa agreed quickly. It doesn't. It doesn't excuse anything, but it explains it. She rebuilt her identity around control, around creating a perfect community where she had power, where she made the rules, where she couldn't be left, couldn't be replaced, couldn't be reminded that Asian women existed and were younger and prettier and didn't have stretch marks or gray hair or the bitterness of abandonment. Marcus's jaw tightened. So I'm being punished because your dad cheated with someone who looked vaguely like me? You're being punished because you represent everything she's terrified of, Melissa said. Loss of control, vulnerability, the idea that perfect suburban kingdoms can't protect you from pain. She paused. And yes, the racism. The HOA presidency became her marriage replacement, something she could control completely, and anyone who threatened that control became the enemy. Why are you telling me this? Marcus asked. Melissa pulled a thumb drive from her purse and set it on the table between them. Because control became corruption, and I've been watching her destroy lives for 2 years, telling myself that I was protecting her by staying silent. But I wasn't protecting her. I was enabling her. Marcus stared at the thumb drive. Small, silver, containing evidence that could destroy a woman whose daughter sat across from him crying. That drive contains every financial record you need, Melissa said. Every email, every invoice, every kickback payment, 7 years of embezzlement, fraud, and racketeering, everything Detective Bramble needs to build a federal case. You're betraying your own mother, Marcus said quietly. I'm saving her, Melissa corrected, tears flowing freely now. From herself. From becoming someone I don't recognize anymore. From turning into the kind of person who throws water at disabled veterans and feels righteous about it. She pushed the drive across the table. Maybe if she loses everything, her power, her reputation, her freedom, maybe she'll remember who she used to be, before my father broke her, before control became her drug. Marcus picked up the drive. It felt heavier than it should, weighted with the knowledge of what it represented. A daughter choosing truth over family. Justice over protection. There's one more thing I need to tell you, Melissa said, voice dropping to barely a whisper. The special assessment threatening everyone in your community? The $7,500 fine designed to bankrupt your witnesses? Marcus nodded. That was my idea, Melissa said. Marcus's hand tightened on the thumb drive hard enough that the plastic edges cut into his scarred palm. I told her to do it, Melissa continued, words tumbling out fast like confession at church. After the pool incident, she called me panicking. She said you were organizing the community, that people were finally standing up to her, that she was losing control. And I told her, her voice broke. I told her to divide them, to make them choose between their principles and their homes, to punish them for supporting you. I thought I was protecting her, but I was just teaching her how to be crueler. Marcus sat very still, the way he used to, before entering burning buildings, processing information, calculating risks. deciding whether the person across from him was a victim or a perpetrator. "Why should I believe any of this?" he asked finally. "Because I saw the video," Melissa said, "of my mother throwing water at you. And I watched her face not when she did it, but after. When she realized people were recording. When she saw the shock on everyone's faces. And for just a moment, I saw my mom. The one who existed before my dad destroyed her. The one who was horrified by what she'd become." Melissa wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, mascara smearing. "That moment is why I'm here. Because somewhere under the HOA tyrant, under the racism and corruption, there's still a person who used to believe in kindness. And if I don't stop her now, that person dies completely." After Melissa left, walking quickly to her car, shoulders hunched like someone expecting to be struck, Marcus sat in the coffee shop staring at the thumb drive, evidence that could destroy Patricia Whitmore completely. Given to him by her own daughter, a woman who loved her mother enough to betray her. His phone buzzed. "Caldwell rejected our motion to dismiss the slap suit. Trial date set for October. We need to talk strategy." Marcus pocketed the thumb drive and called Detective Bramble instead. "I have what you need," he said simply. "Everything. Meet me at my house in an hour." "Marcus?" Bramble's voice was cautious. "If you're about to do something stupid—" "Not stupid," Marcus interrupted. "Necessary. There's a difference." Detective Mike Bramble arrived at Marcus's house with 2 other officers from White Collar Crimes and a laptop covered in law enforcement stickers. They spread out across Marcus's kitchen table like soldiers preparing for battle. Melissa's thumb drive contained 847 files, financial statements going back 7 years, email chains with contractors discussing kickback percentages, meeting minutes where Patricia railroaded board votes, bank statements showing deposits to shell companies owned by her brother, her daughter, her former tennis instructor. "Jesus Christ," Bramble muttered, scrolling through the evidence. She wasn't even trying to hide it. These invoices literally have Whitmore Landscaping in the header. The bank accounts are registered to her daughter's business. "This is the sloppiest fraud I've ever seen." "That's what unchecked power looks like," one of the other officers said. She got so confident that no one would question her, she stopped bothering to cover her tracks. Marcus watched them work, feeling a complicated mix of vindication and guilt. Vindication because this proved he'd been right. Patricia was corrupt, discriminatory, criminal. Guilt because he was watching a woman's life being dismantled file by file, and somewhere in that process was a human being who'd been broken by betrayal and had broken others in return. "There's enough here for federal charges," Bramble said finally, looking up from the laptop. "RICO case, embezzlement, wire fraud, mail fraud, civil rights violations under the Fair Housing Act." He paused. "Marcus, if we move forward with this, Patricia Whitmore is going to prison. Not probation, not house arrest. Actual federal prison, minimum 5 years, possibly 15. "I know," Marcus said quietly. "Her life is over," Bramble continued. "Career destroyed. Reputation destroyed. Family relationships destroyed. Everything she built gone. And that follows her forever." "I know," Marcus repeated. "So I need to ask you something," Bramble said, closing the laptop. "Is that what you want? Because once I submit this to the DA, there's no stopping it. The system takes over. Patricia doesn't get to settle. She doesn't get to apologize. She goes to trial and gets sentenced according to federal guidelines." Marcus looked at his sisters. Sophia nodded. "Once, your choice." Isabella waited silently. "She threw water in my face at a pool," Marcus said slowly. "That was humiliating, painful, racist. But that's not why I'm doing this." He gestured at the laptop full of evidence. "She's been systematically targeting minority families for years, charging them triple the fines, threatening foreclosure, making them afraid to speak their own languages in their own homes. She turned an HOA into a weapon against anyone who didn't fit her vision of a perfect white suburb." His voice grew stronger. "Mrs. Lee's grandson asked why the HOA lady hates them. Maria Ramirez almost lost her house over a parking violation, while Patricia's son parks his commercial truck in her driveway every weekend. The Johnsons, an elderly black couple who served in Vietnam, were threatened with foreclosure over grass height, while Patricia's white neighbors let their lawns grow wild. Marcus looked directly at Bramble. So yes, I want you to move forward, not because I hate Patricia Whitmore, but because families deserve to live without fear. Because the law should protect everyone equally. Because if we don't hold her accountable, the next HOA tyrant learns that discrimination and corruption work as long as you're confident enough. Bramble nodded slowly. Okay, I'll submit the package to the DA tomorrow. You should know Patricia's lawyer will fight hard, and they'll try to make you the villain, the angry disabled vet with a grudge. The race baiter, looking for a payout. They'll attack your character, your credibility, your motivations. Let them, Marcus said. I'm done being afraid of people who think I don't belong. But he didn't know just how vicious the fight would become. The media coverage started immediately. Not because the DA's office leaked they hadn't even filed charges yet, but because Thomas Caldwell held a press conference. My client, Patricia Whitmore, is the victim of a coordinated attack by a disgruntled homeowner with a history of confrontational behavior, Caldwell announced to a roomful of reporters. Mr. Marcus Chen, while sympathetic as a disabled veteran, has targeted Mrs. Whitmore with false accusations of racism and corruption in an attempt to extort a settlement and gain media attention. Marcus watched the press conference from his living room, his hands shaking again. Mrs. Whitmore is a dedicated public servant who has volunteered her time for 7 years to maintain property values and community standards in Desert Ridge Estates. Caldwell continued, she has been subjected to harassment, defamation, and now a malicious investigation based on fabricated evidence provided by individuals with clear bias against her. A reporter asked, what about the video showing Mrs. Whitmore throwing water at Mr. Chen? Caldwell didn't hesitate. That brief moment, taken entirely out of context, shows my client attempting to de-escalate a confrontational situation. Mr. Chen had been asked repeatedly to verify his resident status and became verbally aggressive. Mrs. Whitmore was attempting to protect herself and other pool patrons. Marcus's vision went blurry. Not with tears, with rage. Sophia grabbed the remote and turned off the TV. Don't watch this. It's just legal theater. None of it matters in court. It matters in the world, Marcus said. Everyone watching that sees me as the bad guy now. The angry veteran attacking a nice suburban lady who was just trying to keep her community safe. People who believe that already believed it, Isabella said. You can't change minds that are committed to misunderstanding, but the damage spread. Online comment sections filled with vitriol. Why do disabled people always play victim? He probably went to that pool looking for a confrontation. This is what happens when DEI culture runs amok. A white woman can't even enforce rules without being called racist. I guarantee there's more to this story. HOA presidents don't just attack random people. He must have done something to provoke her. Marcus read every comment, each one a small cut that added up to hemorrhaging. His therapist had warned him not to engage with online hate. But he couldn't stop. Couldn't look away from evidence that half the country thought he was a liar, a race baiter, a professional victim exploiting his disability for attention. His daughters saw the coverage. Lily asked why people were saying Daddy was lying. Emma got into a fight at school defending him, came home with a bloody nose and a 3-day suspension. Rebecca called furious. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Our daughters are being bullied at school because you had to make this a public crusade. Was it worth it, Marcus? Was proving a point worth Emma getting punched? She was defending me, Marcus said quietly. She shouldn't have to, Rebecca yelled. She's 12 years old. She should be worried about homework and friends, not whether her dad is going to be on the news being called a fraud. I didn't choose this. You did choose this, Rebecca interrupted. You could have settled quietly, moved, started over, Instead, you made yourself a target and our daughter's collateral damage. I'm filing for full custody. I'm not letting them be dragged through whatever circus is coming next." She hung up before Marcus could respond. He sat in his wheelchair in the dark, phone still in his hand, feeling the world collapse around him, one loss at a time. His home was threatened. His witnesses had abandoned him. His daughters were being bullied. His ex-wife was suing for custody. The media had turned him into a villain. And Patricia Whitmore, criminal, racist, corrupt, was being defended as the real victim. Marcus wheeled himself to the bathroom and vomited, then sat on the floor, too exhausted to get back in his chair, wondering if this was what breaking felt like. Complete, final, irreversible. His phone buzzed. Text from Sophia. "Just talked to Bramble. DA is filing charges tomorrow. Federal grand jury. This is really happening." Marcus stared at the message. The point of no return. Once federal charges were filed, there was no settling, no backing out, no quiet resolution, just trial, testimony, cross-examination, media circus. He could still stop it. Call Bramble, withdraw the evidence, accept Patricia's settlement, apologize, sell his house, disappear into whatever life existed for disabled Asian men who'd learned their place. His finger hovered over Bramble's contact. Then he thought about Mrs. Lee's 7-year-old grandson asking why the HOA lady hated them, Maria Ramirez nearly losing her house, the Johnsons facing foreclosure after serving their country. He thought about Lily's drawing of Superman in a wheelchair, about the words in crayon, "My dad is a hero." Heroes weren't people who never felt afraid. Heroes were people who felt terrified and chose to stand anyway. Marcus deleted the text and called Rebecca instead. "Don't take my daughters," he said when she answered. "Please, whatever else happens, don't take them from me." "Then drop the case," Rebecca said. "Settle, move, protect them." "I am protecting them," Marcus said, "by teaching them that you fight back when someone tries to destroy you, that you stand up even when it costs everything. That belonging somewhere means refusing to be driven away." "That's a very pretty philosophy," Rebecca said coldly. "Right up until Emma comes home with another black eye." "Then teach her to fight better," Marcus said, and hung up before he could hear her response. It was the first time in 3 years he'd ended a conversation with Rebecca instead of letting her end it. Small victory, hollow victory, but victory nonetheless. The next morning, Detective Bramble called, "Federal charges filed." Grand jury indicted Patricia Whitmore on 17 counts, including embezzlement, wire fraud, mail fraud, and civil rights violations. She was arrested 2 hours ago. Arraignment is tomorrow. She's being held on $500,000 bail. Marcus felt something twist in his chest. Not triumph, not satisfaction, just weight. "You okay?" Bramble asked. "No," Marcus admitted, "but that was never the point." That evening, every news station in Phoenix led with the story. Desert Ridge HOA president arrested on federal fraud charges. The footage showed Patricia being led out of her house in handcuffs, her perfect hair disheveled, her makeup smudged, looking small and defeated, and human in a way Marcus had never seen her. He watched from his living room, Sophia and Isabella on either side of him, and felt the complexity of justice necessary but brutal, right but painful, earned but expensive. "She did this to herself," Sophia said quietly, reading his expression. "I know," Marcus replied. "Doesn't make it feel any cleaner. The trial was set for October, 3 months away. 3 months of media coverage, legal maneuvering, community division, and living with the choice he'd made." Marcus wheeled himself outside to his back patio and watched the desert sunset. The same colors, orange and purple and gold. The same heat cooling to comfortable as night approached. The same cicadas singing their eternal song. Everything the same, everything different. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. "Mr. Chen?" A familiar voice. "Maria Ramirez. I heard about the charges. I wanted to say I'm sorry I backed away. I was afraid, but you weren't. And that matters more than you know." After she hung up, Marcus sat alone in the darkness, feeling the desert night settle around him like a blanket, heavy, warm, real. He'd started something he couldn't stop, made choices he couldn't unmake, burned bridges he'd need to live without, but he'd also stood up when staying down would have been easier. Sometimes that's all courage is, not grand gestures or heroic moments. Just the stubborn refusal to accept that certain people deserve to be afraid in their own homes. The stars came out one by one, eternal and indifferent. Marcus watched them and breathed. Tomorrow would bring new battles, new costs, new doubts. But tonight, for the first time in 3 months, he felt like maybe he could survive this. Maybe survival was enough. The meeting happened at a coffee shop far from Desert Ridge, in a corner booth where no one would recognize them. Melissa sat across from Marcus, hands wrapped around a cold coffee cup, looking like she hadn't slept in days. "I don't expect you to forgive her," Melissa began. "I don't expect you to drop the case. I need you to understand something." Marcus waited. "My mother wasn't always like this," Melissa continued. 20 years ago, she was different, softer. Then my father had an affair with a younger woman, an Asian woman, actually, and left us. My mother's entire identity was built on being the perfect wife, the perfect homemaker, the perfect suburban queen. When he destroyed that, something broke inside her. Marcus's jaw tightened. "That doesn't excuse racism." "No," Melissa agreed. "It doesn't, but it explains it." She rebuilt her identity around control, around creating a perfect community where she had power, where she couldn't be left, couldn't be replaced. The HOA presidency became her marriage, something she could control completely. "Why are you telling me this?" Marcus asked. Melissa pulled a thumb drive from her purse and set it on the table. "Because control became corruption, and I've been watching her destroy lives for 2 years. This drive contains every financial record, every email, every piece of evidence you need to prove she's been embezzling from the HOA." Marcus stared at the drive. "You're betraying your own mother." "I'm saving her," Melissa corrected, tears flowing now. "From herself, from becoming someone I don't recognize anymore. Maybe if she loses everything, maybe if she faces real consequences, she'll remember who she used to be." She pushed the drive across the table. "I saw the video of her throwing water at you, and I realized my mother has become exactly the kind of person my father left her for. Cruel, entitled, willing to hurt innocent people to feel powerful." Marcus picked up the drive. It felt heavier than it should. "There's one more thing," Melissa said. "The special assessment, it was my idea." Marcus's hand tightened on the drive. "I told her to do it," Melissa continued. "To divide your community, to make them choose between their homes and their principles. I thought I was protecting her, but I was just enabling her." She wiped her eyes. "I'm sorry for all of it." After Melissa left, Marcus sat in the coffee shop staring at the thumb drive, evidence that could destroy Patricia completely, given to him by the woman's own daughter. He thought about what Melissa had said, about Patricia being broken by betrayal, about control becoming corruption, about how pain could turn people into monsters. He thought about his own pain, the building crushing his spine, his wife leaving, his daughters looking at him with pity, the way trauma could hollow you out until only rage and hurt remained. The difference was choice. Marcus had chosen to pull people out of fires even when it cost him everything. Patricia had chosen to burn people to feel warm. But maybe Melissa was right. Maybe consequences weren't just about punishment. Maybe they were about forcing someone to see themselves clearly for the first time in years. Marcus put the thumb drive in his pocket and called Detective Bramble. "I have what you need," he said simply. The emergency HOA board meeting was called for that evening. Every resident received the notice not from Patricia's secretary, but from Donald Chen, acting as interim treasurer. Emergency vote to remove HOA president for financial malfeasance. All homeowners invited. Mandatory attendance for board members. The clubhouse filled to capacity. standing room only. Families who'd withdrawn from the case were there, drawn by curiosity or hope or the simple need to see what would happen. Patricia sat at the head table, immaculate as always, hair perfect, makeup flawless, but something in her eyes looked wild, cornered. Donald Chen stood, hands shaking but voice steady. I move to remove Patricia Whitmore as HOA president, effective immediately, on the grounds of financial fraud, discriminatory enforcement, and abuse of power. Patricia stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. I've served this community for 7 years. You've stolen from this community for 7 years, Isabella interrupted, standing in the audience. She held up a document. Financial records showing payments to shell companies owned by your family members. Invoices for work never performed. Kickbacks from contractors. Embezzlement, totaling approximately $380,000. The room erupted. Patricia's face went white. Those are lies. They're your daughter's records, Sophia said, standing beside Isabella. Melissa Whitmore Chase provided them voluntarily, along with her testimony. Patricia actually staggered, gripping the table. For a moment, Marcus thought she might faint. When she looked up, her eyes found his across the crowded room. Not with rage, with something worse. Recognition. The understanding that she'd lost not because he'd beaten her, but because her own family had stopped enabling her. Patricia started, voice cracking. I built this community. Everything I did was to protect property values, to maintain standards. You built a dictatorship, Maria Ramirez called from the audience. You harassed my family. You threatened our home. You made us afraid to speak Spanish in our own driveway. You fined me $300 for hanging cultural decorations, Mrs. Lee added, while your neighbors displayed Christmas lights for 3 months without penalty. One by one, families stood, not shouting, just sharing. A chorus of pain that had been silent for 7 years. Patricia looked around the room, searching for allies, for anyone who would defend her. She found nothing but anger and betrayal and tired relief. All in favor of removing Patricia Whitmore as HOA president? Donald Chen called. A forest of hands rose. Not everyone, but enough. Motion carries. Mrs. Whitmore, you are removed from office effective immediately. You are also banned from HOA property pending criminal investigation. Please surrender your keys and leave the premises. Patricia stood frozen for a long moment. Then, slowly, she removed the clubhouse keys from her keychain and placed them on the table. Her hands were shaking, the same tremor Marcus knew too well, the one that came from a body betraying you when you most needed control. As she walked toward the door, she passed Marcus's wheelchair. She stopped. For a heartbeat, they looked at each other. I was protecting what was mine, Patricia whispered. It was never yours, Marcus replied quietly. That was the problem. Patricia's face crumpled. Not with rage, with something that looked almost like understanding. Then she walked out of the clubhouse she'd ruled for 7 years, and the door closed behind her with a soft, final click. The room exhaled collectively. Then, chaos. People crying, hugging, talking, all at once. Donald Chen tried to restore order but gave up, letting the community process years of suppressed emotion. Marcus wheeled himself outside, needing air, needing space from the celebration that felt less like victory and more like surgery necessary but painful. Sophia found him on the clubhouse porch, staring at the pool where this had all started. You okay? She asked. I don't know, Marcus admitted. I wanted her held accountable, but watching her walk out like that broken, humiliated, it didn't feel like justice. It felt cruel. Justice often does, Sophia said gently. That's what makes it hard. They sat in silence, watching the sun set over Desert Ridge Estates. The same terracotta roofs, the same desert landscaping, but different somehow, lighter. 3 weeks later, the Phoenix Chronicle ran a front-page story. Desert Ridge HOA president arrested on federal fraud charges. The article detailed Patricia's embezzlement, her discriminatory enforcement, her retaliation against whistleblowers. It mentioned Marcus by name. Local firefighter and disabled veteran Marcus Chen, who'd sparked the investigation after being assaulted at a community pool. The story went national. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, everyone had an opinion. Some praised Marcus. Others criticized him for destroying a woman's life over a pool incident. The attention was suffocating. Marcus stopped reading the news coverage after finding a think piece titled, "The Cost of Accountability, Did We Go Too Far?" He threw his phone across the room, watched it bounce off the couch, felt ashamed of his anger and more ashamed of his shaking hands. His daughters saw everything. Lily asked why people on TV were saying mean things about Daddy. Emma got into a fight at school defending him. Rebecca called, worried about the girls being dragged into this media circus. The special assessment was rescinded. The discriminatory fines were refunded. The HOA budget was audited and restructured. Donald Chen was elected president in an emergency election. Real reforms were implemented. But Marcus paid a price. His homeowner's insurance premiums increased after the lawsuit publicity. 2 sponsorships he'd been negotiating with adaptive sports companies withdrew, citing controversial public image. Someone vandalized his front yard with spray paint. Race baiter. The victories felt hollow when weighed against the cost, but then, slowly, other things happened. Maria Ramirez started a neighborhood committee for cultural celebrations, Lunar New Year, Cinco de Mayo, Diwali. The Lees hung their red lanterns without fear. The Johnsons' lawn grew to whatever length they damn well pleased. More importantly, families from other HOAs started reaching out. Stories of their own, Patricia's, their own discrimination, their own silent suffering. Sophia and Isabella's firm began taking cases. The ACLU launched an HOA abuse hotline. State legislators discussed reform. One pool incident had started a movement. On a warm evening in June, the community held a pool party. Not official, not organized, just families showing up with food and music and the simple desire to be together in a space that had been denied to them. Marcus sat poolside, watching Lily and Emma play Marco Polo with neighborhood kids. His daughters, who'd been afraid 3 months ago, were fearless now. Mrs. Lee approached, carrying a plate of homemade dumplings. She set it on the table beside him without saying anything. Just a gesture of gratitude, too big for words. The Rodriguez family brought a speaker. The Patels brought samosas. The Johnsons brought their grandchildren. And gradually, tentatively, Desert Ridge Estates began to feel like an actual community instead of a kingdom. "You thinking about the fire?" Sophia asked, sitting beside him. Marcus nodded. He thought about it every day. Running into that building, the floor collapsing, waking up in the hospital and learning he'd never walk the same way again. Regret it? Sophia pressed. "Never," Marcus said immediately. "I saved 3 lives. That's worth any cost." "And this?" Isabella asked, gesturing at the pool, the families, the community that had been broken and was slowly learning to heal. Taking on Patricia, the lawsuit, the media circus, all of it. Worth it? Marcus looked at his daughters, playing without fear, at families who'd been strangers 3 months ago, now sharing food and stories. At a neighborhood that had lived under dictatorship and chosen democracy. "Ask me in a year?" he said, honestly. "Right now it still hurts too much to know. That was the truth no one wanted to hear. Fighting back had cost him money, privacy, peace of mind. Patricia was facing prison, her family destroyed, her life in ruins. The moral lines weren't as clear as people wanted them to be. But as the sun set over Phoenix and children's laughter echoed across the water, Marcus thought maybe that was okay. Maybe justice wasn't supposed to feel clean. Maybe standing up was supposed to hurt. Maybe that's what made it worth doing. The water reflected the sky, orange and purple and gold, the same pool where Patricia had thrown water in his face, but different now. Claimed by everyone instead of controlled by one person. Marcus wheeled himself to the pool's edge, gripped the aluminum frame of his chair, lowered himself into the water, the cool shock of it against his scarred skin. The buoyancy, lifting the weight of metal and bone, the way water erased the difference between those who could walk and those who couldn't, For the first time in 3 months, Marcus felt something close to peace. Not healing, not victory, just the quiet knowledge that he'd stood up when staying down would have been easier. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes courage isn't about being fearless. It's about being terrified and standing anyway. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to leave a pool you have every right to use. And sometimes that small act of defiance changes everything, even if the cost is higher than you ever imagined.